Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. First of all, thank you to all the well wishers over the last couple of weeks. I've had about a man flu after Christmas, following my mum having the same bout of woman flu at Christmas. So it's been a bit of a crap 3 weeks, to be fair, but we're here. It's still hanging around in the background, so apologies for the nasally production value, but it is what it is, and I decided that, can't just sit on my arse all the time. I need to get some more videos out, so here we are, and I say apologies for the crap audio. Now I want to take you back in time to a year that probably doesn't mean anything to you whatsoever, but for me it was a fairly important year. It's the year I bought my first house, rather, in 1992. This guy was in charge. You may remember him.
The peas are good tonight, dear.
So iconic TV programmes first aired in 1992. You'd be surprised at this. Just listen to this list. You may remember Men Behaving Badly. If you do, obviously you remember Leslie Ash. Also Big Breakfast, 1992. Football Italia, 1992. Do you remember Paul Gascoigne? Corto! Yeah, well, that was there as well. Gladiators, Heartbeat. A pretty iconic year, really, and some really, good TV came out at the time. And also it was the last airing of You and Me. So all you boomers out there, if you remember that one like I do, even though I'm not a boomer, that last aired in 1992. So, we're talking a fairly long time ago here. But for me, it was a time when my Ford Capri Laser 1.6 car, something like this, was stolen from outside the front of my house. Now, I wouldn't mind. The car was, I'm embarrassed to say I can't even remember the registration number because it was that crap. But I think it was a 1986 model, and was only, 7 years old at the time. And it used to take me an age to start the bloody thing every morning. So the fact that somebody nicked it overnight outside the front of my house without me even stirring, considering my bedroom was at the front of the house as well, was a little bit perturbing. However, 24 hours later, the police phoned me. It's been burnt out, found in a field. And when I went to look at it, they were right, completely burnt out. Ironically, the only part of the car they'd nicked was the shitty engine that was absolute junk. So fair play to the car thieves. I hope you die. But still, settlement claim off that, I think, was about £3,000. I used £2,500 of that towards a deposit for the new house, which was in Luton, 45 grand, or 42 and a half. And it was one of those like 5% deposit times. The last 500 quid I used to buy a really junky old Mini. It was a T-Reg. So it would have been 1978 it would have been. So we're talking 88, 92, 14 years old, 500 quid. And this thing was like rusty as anything. There was holes in the footwell. Bit of cardboard. Those of you that own a Mini will know about a bit of cardboard in the front of the radiator. Even the chassis plate was nicked, was missing. And when I pointed this out to Blake, oh, don't worry, I'll get you another one. Literally 2 days later, he had one which had been stamped like manually with the chassis number. I was just like pop riveted onto the front of the front crossbeam. Anyway, but it was 500 quid. It got me round, and it did me for quite a while, actually. I spent a lot of money on the thing and ended up taking the front of the car off and putting a fiberglass front on it and whatever. But it was a junker when I bought it. It was 500 quid. So I had that, which was a bit of a come down because before I had the Capri, I was tooling around in this. A 1988, mine was an E-Reg, those pictures are D-Reg. Mine was an E-Reg, and it was absolutely stunning. Would beat a Renault 5 GT Turbo off the lights every time. In fact, I used to work rather in London at the time doing nights. And every night down the Holloway Road, I'd come across this Renault 5 GT Turbo. And for those of you that know Holloway Road, it's literally like a set of lights, 300 yards, set of lights, 300 yards, and every night we would drag race for 300 yards every night, it seemed, being this Renault 5 Turbo. And 80% of the time, I'd probably beat it. It was a cracking little car. But after I had 1 year of it, I couldn't afford the insurance anymore. I was only, 19 or 20 at the time. So that had to go to make way for the Capri. So that was a bit of a come down. And now to the Mini was a proper come down. But anyway, I digress. The point I was trying to make is that a cheap car back in 1992 was 500 quid, and it was cheap. Friends have been coming to me recently saying, "Oh, can you get me a cheap car?" And most of them will veer on about £1,000. Some of them like less than £1,000. But I said to them, "Look, you can't get a cheap car for less than £1,000." Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. And this brings me on to the whole, well, what's a cheap, used car price are too dear. So I just want to dive down a little bit deeper into this and show you exactly what I'm trying to say.
Some time later.
Now, I want to put up a graphic at this point from a website called Finder, which has got loads of different financial bits and pieces of information on it. But this one gives you an idea of how prices have increased over the years. And this one goes back from, ironically, 1992 to 2023. And I just want to talk you through some of the things on there that sort of caught my attention. So you can see from the graphic that inflation stands at 112%. So anything that was £1 back then is now £2.24. If my things are right, because it's gone up 112%. There's £1, or maybe what's that? £2.12. £2.12. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, about £2. But you can see that most other things have gone up a hell of a lot more. Electricity, power, for example, 165%. The salary is 179%. Petrol, which has always gone up at a rate of inflation plus, I think it's 2% according to the government. So that was always going to go up by a fair chunk, but that currently stands at about 220%. And house prices, 438%. Now, when you consider the used car market, we've already spoken about the Mini that was 500, and now a cheap car is about £1,000. Even though the car that I got for 500 quid then is a significantly lower quality than the car you get for £1,000 now. But hey, technology and, standard of living and everything like that, you come to expect these things now. But, hello guys, future me here. Just been watching the track back as I'm doing the editing, and I waffle on for 15 minutes about absolute dross. And then I get back to the charade that I was talking to you about earlier, because that's the point I was going to get to. So apologies for the crap editing and the waffle, but hey, I've saved 15 minutes of your life, so lucky you. And it cost me, I think it was 6,295 back in 1992. Back in 1990. So it was 2 years old, and it would be akin to something like what? Probably not an ST3, but probably a Fiesta ST2 nowadays. There were more powerful things out there, like the 205 GTIs and stuff like that, the 1.9s. But it was quick enough. So about a Fiesta ST2. Now, I did a quick little search on Auto Trader. A Fiesta ST2 now is about 16 grand for a 2-year-old model, 16, 17, give or take. So given that mine was 6,295, if you add inflation, and I'll just work this out on my calculator now. In fact, I said that, I haven't got a calculator. I'll use my phone.
Some time later.
Is about 13.5 grand, 14 grand, give or take. It's actually 13,597 if you're pedantic, but 13.5 grand. So it's, again, given the fact that these things are a little bit more, well, obviously a lot more technology advanced these days, and the equipment you're getting inside it and whatever, it's about there or thereabouts. When you look at that chart we put up earlier from Finder, are used car prices really that expensive? Everything is, from a used car point of view, is about, unless you're going for the bigger stuff, then this is where it's quite interesting. The more expensive stuff back in the day was about, you could get a Mondeo, a Sierra back in the day for about, I think it was about 12, 13 grand. So you're talking about, 28 grand now, which again is about right. Everything's there or thereabouts. So, actually used car prices now aren't that expensive. And I'm going to show you a little chart here from the Office of National Statistics, easy for you to say, which shows the consumer price index and the weighting that used cars have on it. Now, this is basically trying to say that for every £1,000 that a consumer has, how much of an effect does a second-hand car have on that consumer? And you'll see that back in 1992, we're talking about it was around 80 parts per thousand. So for every £1,000 of expenditure, around 80 quid of that would fall out into second-hand vehicles. Now, that's not saying that you'd spend 80 quid a month out of £1,000 on a used car. It was how much it would affect an individual. And you can see that as time goes on, that weighting on an individual's finances has fallen drastically to where we're in now, like just over 20 parts per thousand. So around 25 quid, I'd say, per £1,000 of consumer finance. And this is massively because of the increase in house prices. Obviously, money's worth a lot more now. People's wealth has grown exponentially because of the increase in house prices. And when you consider that, like, it's 24 million houses, I think, in the UK at the moment. And if you think that those have grown by 400 and odd % over the last 25 years, 30 years or so, you can see the actual increase in wealth in the country has grown massively compared to what a used car is actually worth. But in people's minds, a used car should be worth, back to what they thought, 500 quid for a cheap car then, £1,000 for a cheap car now, about double. Whether that's realistic when you consider that, technology in houses hasn't really increased in 30 years, but, they're a little bit more energy efficient. They're a little bit more stylish, maybe you consider, than a house built back in the 90s. But effectively, it's the same thing. It's bricks, mortar, roof joists, tiles. Nothing has really changed in the house. Whereas a car, by example, you can sit in a car now. I'm fairly sure every car you get into nowadays has got electric windows, air conditioning, power steering. The increase in quality of a used car is massive compared to a used house. So, is it really fair to say that used car prices are too high? Yes, granted, they've jumped massively in the last couple of years because of shortages, because of EVs, because of 101 different reasons. And now they've fallen a little bit. People, they need to fall more, Well, here's another chart I need to show you. Now, the line I want you to look at in particular is the red line. I'll go into the other chart later if we need to, but the red line is the important one. This is obviously the price growth. Now, this chart's from Auto Trader, and to quote their words, it gives the average advertised retail price of a used car seen by Auto Trader across the whole retail market. Now, you'll see that the red line increases consistently, which is what we'd expect with the rate of inflation and what we saw in a previous chart from wherever it was from, but the one that gave you all the details of house prices, bits and pieces. So used car values are trending along this increasing line until you get obviously to the pandemic time, and then prices massively jump and then they fluctuate a little bit and then they start to fall. And you can see the fall isn't particularly, massive. It's fairly minuscule, to be honest with you. However, if you extrapolate that red line from where it was pre-pandemic up to where we are about now, okay, it comes out below where the red line ends at the moment, but it's not significant. It wouldn't be significantly lower than that. It would be one bar, which I think on the chart works out to about 1,150 quid, I think. Is that right? Yeah, 1,150 quid. So let's say about £1,000, give or take. So to say that used car prices are massively higher at the moment would be a little bit disingenuous, especially when you consider that the value of used cars that are on there now are including a lot more higher value stuff than would have done back in the day. And the point I'm trying to make is that your average price of cars now is going up anyway. Technology's massively increased. You've got battery-powered cars now as opposed to ICE cars. So it's not realistic to say that prices are too high at the moment. I personally think they're just about right, if not a little bit cheaper than they should be. I think the drop over the last couple of months has been on the higher grade stuff, but as you've probably seen anecdotally, most other cars that are below £10,000 are fairly well priced at the moment. I don't think, and you'll probably see from other channels, that people are struggling to buy cars. And just on that, I joined the motorway trade side to try and buy some cars from Motorway, thinking that it's a different source of cars. They're more they're cars that you wouldn't really get your hands on because they're cars direct from the retail public. and ideally they're the cars you kind of want. You can pick and choose and cherry pick the good ones. Well, did I get a shock there? I was putting bids in, bearing in mind that you don't have the auction costs, but you do have motorways commission, which is about the same, give or take, with delivery. I was shocked that I was getting outbid by usually £500, sometimes £1,000 on £3.5, £4 cars. I don't know who's buying these cars, what traders are buying them, but they leave themselves very little margin to play with if anything's wrong with these cars. But hey, you know, it was a bit of a shock to me, but it just shows you that there must be demand out there and people must be paying the money, because unless there's a number of traders going broke. And I do think as well there is like me, a number of people that have gone into the used car market in the last few years, seen that you can make a lot of money in it. Not for the reasons I've got into the used car market. Mine's completely different. Mine's like personal, out of a job, needs to do something else. But I think there are a lot of people that have got into used cars because they think they can make a quick buck at it. And I think maybe some of them are starting to feel a little bit of pain now that the last few months have started to hit quite hard. So not all motor traders are making money at the moment, but even so, there's still a lot of people out there paying a lot of money for used cars, which to me just seems, you know, as a trader, it's difficult to buy a used car right now in the sub £6,000 market. And have enough of a margin in it to be able to make a profit and keep your overheads ticking over. It is difficult. But yeah, anyway, just wanted to throw that out there to you guys and show you that actually used car prices are not as high as you might think they are, and they don't need to come down as much as you think they do. It's a fairly stable market, although, you know, the press will have you say other things at the moment. Behind the scenes, there's plenty of demand out there, and there's plenty of money flying around. So yeah, that's where we are at the moment. Anyway, enough waffling. Thank you for watching. I hope you found that interesting. If there's anything I've missed or anything you want me to go into, please leave it in the comments below. Give us a like on the video if you enjoyed it, and if you want to see more of this kind of stuff, please subscribe. You know, hit the bell notification, and that way you'll get something every time I release a video, which will be a little bit more often, I promise. And I've done over the last couple of weeks for reasons. So thanks again for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.